I would like to remind everyone that this show is brought to you by the Dolphin Wars.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody is having a great day. Over here, it's a little wet, and the weather's been thundering, so that's what caused our technical difficulty beforehand. But we're here, we're ready, we're rocking. Welcome to King Dolphin Television. I am Raymond, author of the Dolphin Wars series of books. Welcome to the best pod in YouTube. I hope you're all doing well and staying dry this Wednesday. Big week number 2 continues to stay. We're honored to have my friend, Mr. Jondarr Bradshaw, here for an interview. Before we get started, if you're new here and like what we do here at King Dolphin TV, please like and subscribe. And more importantly, if you know of any creators that you want to see interviewed, have them reach out to me, and we'll put you on the interviews. Wrenches will put the link out there for those that want to reach out to me. And before we bring Mr. Bradshaw on, I'd like to welcome you all to the chat. First off, my wrench team supreme. We have Legatus Legionii, the first one, last out. We have Snortopupus Q. Burr. We have John Rendell. And we have Tim the Enchanter here. Thank you for showing up. And for the rest of the chat, Sandra's going to keep track of names, and I will welcome you toward the end of the show. So thank you all for coming. And how we're going to work things, this is going to be a bit different. I will ask the standard questions to Mr. Bradshaw, Mr. Jondarr Bradshaw, and then he's got a PowerPoint presentation about the First Robotics program, and then we will open it up to the chat. So, without further ado, it's been a long time, Jondarr. Welcome.
Hey, my friend, it's so good to see you, and it's great to be making waves with you here on Dolphin TV.
Thank you. Thank you. I know who you are, but for the chat, if you could give us a little background about yourself.
Well, there isn't all that much special about me. I think it's more about what it is that we do with young people that make the difference, but I am a former NASA contractor, old and retired now, working at the Great Lakes Science Center in Cleveland, Ohio. We happen to be home to one of only a handful of official NASA visitor centers in the country, and I oversee many of those exhibit components that are there. I served almost 25 years with the agency, and so it seemed to be a really nice fit. And it's always nice, and hopefully we're exciting a whole new generation of explorers and innovators, and those are the things that really excite me. Sorry, Raymond, I think I lost my audio feed.
Okay.
I've got you now.
Okay, thank you. I was going to ask you to tell us about First Robotics, but is maybe the video would be best to tell, or would you like to go give us a short intro on it?
You know what? The video might be a great place to start, and then we can build from there.
All right, sounds good. Let me share. And
here we go.
First Robotics Competition is a fun, challenging, inspiring science and technology program for kids, grades 9 through 12. It's one in a progression of 4 programs that make up First, an international STEM organization founded by Dean Cayman, designed to foster 21st century life skills and spark kids' interest in science, technology, engineering, and math, so they become innovative problem solvers able to tackle the world's biggest challenges. In the First Robotics Competition, teams of high schoolers are given just 6 weeks to design, build, and program a robot capable of playing a challenging field game with and against other robots. But it's way more than robots. It's about learning new skills, working as a team, practicing respect, making new friends, finding out what you can do, and having fun. In addition, every participant is eligible to apply for millions of dollars in college scholarships. There are many ways to get involved with the First Robotics Competition. Visit us online to get started.
Well, there you go. Now you know a little bit about at least the First Robotics Competition. And again, the First Robotics Competition is one of a suite of 4 separate programs that are offered by an organization that's called First. And First is the largest STEM education organization in the world. It's a nonprofit organization that's literally volunteer run. We are in 49 countries around the world, and our goal is to excite young people and to get them more involved in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. As you saw from the video, it's a lot of fun. We start out at preschool, work all the way up through high school. We consider the high school program the varsity level, and I've been working with that program now for about, this was my 20th season as a First volunteer. Can you believe that? 20 years.
20 years, and you're still having fun.
I'm still having fun. I got involved when I was with NASA. NASA is a big sponsor and supporter of the First program, and I think our field center, our NASA facility here in Cleveland, was the first to really embrace the First program. Getting involved. First been around for about 32 years, and we got involved early on. And hosted one of the some, I believe, about 100 regional events around the world. Our field center hosted one of those regional events in Canada, where we saw the best and brightest high school robotics teams from across 6 states and 2 Canadian provinces. And of course, the top performers at those regional competitions will advance to the World Championship. You could think of it as the Super Bowl of robotics, or better yet, it's like the Olympics, this incredible sport of the mind, and it is a lot of fun. But I progress. What would you like to know about the program? What can I answer for you?
So how long has First been? How long has First been going?
First has been going for about 32 years now. It started out, believe it or not, in New Hampshire in a high school gymnasium with 23 teams from across the region that competed that first year. Today, there are more than 4,000 teams at the high school level, more than 4,000 teams that represent some 38 countries, I think, at that level that are competing. And of course, everybody who participates in the program is eligible to apply for up to $80 million in college scholarships. And to me, it's just incredible.
Yes. Oh, that is fantastic. So, and you've been working with them for about 25 years.
20 years that I've been involved with First. Okay. And it is just a remarkable organization. I'm so proud to be a part of it for what it is that they stand for, what they do, and more importantly, how they do it. The organization uses robots as a hook, but what they're really about is building better people, not just robots. They build people by providing them with the skills, and the leadership to grow and become great people who are using science, technology, engineering, and math to change the world.
Okay. And you're affiliated with the Great Lakes Science Center, great institution.
Well, thank you. We'd like to think so. And I brought to the Science Center the whole concept of FIRST. Talked so much about it, something that I've been involved with for a long time, and that I'm very passionate about. And I convinced the Science Center and its board of trustees to get behind a program like this that meets the mission and the goals of the Great Lakes Science Center. So. With their encouragement, with their guidance, and with their support, we were able to start 4 brand new high school robotics teams in the greater Cleveland area. And the schools that we had targeted were schools that are underserved and underrepresented in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math. So we got these urban youth involved in a program that traditionally we haven't seen very many urban students participate in ever. And in their first season, these kids were outstanding. They competed against the top teams from 6 states. And while they didn't win the competition, they certainly held their own. Each of those teams, out of the 60 teams that were there, the teams that I support and work with, were all ranked within the top 20 at the end of qualifications. And my kids were just excited. They were bouncing off the ceiling. They felt 10 feet tall and bulletproof. They kept saying, "Mr. B," that's what they call me. "Mr. B, you won't believe it. We didn't know anything about anything, and we still scored so well. Just wait until next year and all that we can do." And they already have their heart set on going to the World Championship. So we'll see if we can get them there.
Okay. What is the scope of your reach for teaching the students? Is it pretty much just the greater Cleveland area, or does it go further?
Well, this particular partnership involves the Great Lakes Science Center, and it also involves the Cleveland Municipal School District. So we are working exclusively with that school district. But again, I've been volunteering with the program for a number of years, both as a mentor. But I also am an event volunteer, so I travel around the world to different events, and I'm one of FIRST official game announcers. So I do the play-by-play for these regional tournaments as well as the World Championship, and that's been very, very exciting. So I travel around the world. I meet teams from all over, and I collect T-shirts. So every time I come home, I have to take an extra suitcase because I get T-shirts from every single team that's at the competition,
Wow.
and I bring them home, and I have a wonderful collection. So again, this past season, there were more than 4,000 teams that participated in the competition. I worked at 6 regular season events. And then during the off season, in between the seasons, I will go to a number of off season events, and I will help facilitate those events as well.
Wow. So it does keep you very busy, but it's definitely good. It's definitely good busy.
You know, it's so exciting. The program starts off each year. Every year, the challenge changes. We refer to it as the game. So there's a new game to play every year. And because this is an international organization, the game is actually revealed at the same time via live stream. So at a designated time on a designated day, all the teams around the world are holding watch parties where they can tune in and find out what this season's competition will be. And once that video presentation ends, teams have exactly 6 weeks to engineer a solution to this year's challenge. Teams they all get the same kit of parts, a box of standard parts to work with, but there are no instructions. So how they put those parts together is totally up to those teams. Now, teams are allowed, but not just allowed, they're encouraged to raise funds so they can purchase additional equipment to solve the challenge based on the design that they've come up with. and teams also have the opportunity to do some other things as well. So it becomes very, very exciting. There is never enough time, and there are never enough resources to do everything that the challenge has for that particular season. So when teams go to competition, um, they're scouting the rest of the fields in the team, the rest of the teams rather in the field. Um, it's a unique way of doing the competition. During qualification rounds, the competition's set up so that teams play in these matches on 3-on-3. So during standard qualifications, my teams would have the opportunity to play with and against every other team in the field. They
Whoa.
form alliances. One red alliance made up of 3 teams and a blue alliance made up of 3 teams. And they compete against each other to try to outscore each other. There's no trash talk. There's no chest thumping, because the team that you're playing against in this qualifying round might be a team that you're that's part of your alliance in the next round. In fact, the students figured out that they're better off to help one another. It's one of the unique properties of the program. You can't say that you're the best unless you've beaten the best. So with that in mind, you're encouraged to help everybody in the field be the very best that they can be. In fact, we have special awards for teams that go above and beyond to help and support one another. We call that being gracious professionalism. And gracious professionalism is a big part of the ethos of the FIRST program. We can compete like crazy, but we can do it in a professional manner where we support one another and encourage one another. The very first event that I went to, and again, these kids have spent 6 weeks engineering a robot that weighs close to 125 pounds. I believe that that's the maximum. And the very first event that I went to, team was backing in their robot, and the robot fell off the loading dock onto the pavement.
Ouch.
And it was in pieces. And before the first tier could hit the ground, 8 teams had stepped forward and volunteered their team members and their mentors to help the team with the damaged robot put the robot back together. In fact, they worked so well together that not only did they rebuild the robot, they made it better, wired it better, and programmed it better than it had originally had been. And that's that spirit of gracious professionalism, going above and beyond to help one another. The other big phrase within FIRST is cooperation, where we can cooperate and compete at the same time. Those are not separate thoughts in our book. They are not exclusive. You can do both and still have a lot of fun and learn a lot as well. So when you go to these events, it's not uncommon to see students walking around interviewing each other, looking at robot designs, asking for guidance on how they can do that. And those other teams are encouraged to promote that and to help each other. To look at something and say, hey, I've got a suggestion for you. You might want to try this. It is so different from any other competition that I've been at before. In football and basketball and baseball, even in volleyball, it's cutthroat. It's us against them. We've got to beat them. And this is a program in which the students really want to help one another and really encourage one another. Standing ovations every time a team takes the field. And when something goes wrong, people go above and beyond to help them out. In the pit, get this, we've got a pit area, just like NASCAR. And you've got these 10 by 10 booths for, say, 60 or 70 teams. And as you tour through the pit area, you see these high school students and their adult mentors as they're working on the robots. To me, as a mentor, one of the cool things is you see the mentors all sitting around drinking coffee while the students are hard at work working on the robot. They've got it up on blocks or it's up on the jacks. They're underneath. They're making changes. They're looking at the sub-assemblies. They might be rewriting the program at the same time, and they're working hand in hand with other teams that are there. For the 4 teams that I worked with this season, again, this was their very first season, and they really struggled just to pass the inspection. But there were 6 teams from various states that all showed up to help them, to show them how to do things a little better, to help them rewire some things, to clean some things up. And eventually they were able, it took them all practice day, but at the end of practice day, they had passed their inspection, and then they were able to go ahead and compete during the qualification events. They had the time of their lives, and I did too, just watching them compete.
And,
It is amazing.
And it's sounds like they're growing a whole lot as they progress through the challenges.
They certainly do. I think that I might have some video of my students working that we can certainly talk through here. In fact, I believe I do. So these are some of the students. And mind you, these are 4 separate robotics teams from high schools that are traditional rivals here in the greater Cleveland area. Now, none of these students, none of these schools had build space. None of them owned tools. They didn't even know where to find mentors. And I convinced the Great Lakes Science Centers to be a place where those students could come together, where they could build robots. They shared resources, not just tools and space, but we also shared mentors. So I mentored all 4 teams, and so did some of my former colleagues at NASA and some of the other manufacturing facilities that are here in the greater Cleveland area. Now, there are lots of roles on a team. Not everything is technical. We also had some folks working on the logistics side of the house that were helping teams to design and put together their website, to do the design work, to do the marketing, to learn how to go out and ask for corporate fundraising. So all of those things were very important. You know, participating in FIRST is more like running a business with everything that implies. That includes coming up with a product, marketing that product, raising funds so that you can go into bigger production. And it costs a lot. Our teams each had to raise roughly $15,000 to $16,000 in order to compete, to allow them to travel, to stay in lodging, to buy additional equipment, just to pay for their lunches on those long Saturdays where they work together. But they did it, and they had a blast doing it, and they learned quite a few new skills, and then we're able to share that with others. One of the neat things about the program is that we encourage teams to think beyond themselves. We tell them that FIRST is more than just robots. We ask the teams to look around their local community and see how they can use the skills that they are learning to make their communities better. So for our teams, they are actively involved in outreach in the local community. You can find them at community centers, at libraries, at elementary schools and middle schools in the area, promoting science, technology, engineering, and math, facilitating hands-on workshops that focus on STEM, and doing things throughout the summer, working with different summer camps in the area, teaching robotic workshops involving Lego robotics. For the kids, they've become local heroes in their neighborhood. And I want to remind you that the students that we targeted, the school systems that we targeted, were in some of the poorest neighborhoods in the greater Cleveland area. So these were students who came from poor performing schools in rough neighborhoods. And yet, as they walk down the street, these are the kids that all the other kids in the neighborhood are looking up to. They've really changed the culture in their neighborhood. And by changing the culture, I'm talking about the way that kids in the neighborhood see science and technology and engineering and math. It certainly, for my students, changed the way that they view themselves and their place in the community. They're role models now. They're leaders in the community. And they want to grow that and continue that and use the skills that they've learned to make their communities and their schools better places. And that is so neat. Video that's running on the screen right now are just some images, some of our coaches. These are members of team number 8222, the Robo Aviators. That team is from Davis Aerospace and Maritime High School here in Cleveland. as they competed in this year's game. And this year's game was aviation themed. Had to do with cargo transportation. So the teams designed robots that could collect cargo from aircraft and move it to a cargo hub. Closing seconds of every match, the robots could earn extra points by climbing on monkey bars. So these are 125-pound robots climbing on a jungle gym in the middle of the field. And the higher the robots could climb, the more points that those robots could earn. Just incredible stuff.
Yes, incredible. And the complexity of those robots is amazing, just from what I've seen here.
And mind you, the students that we were working with had never done anything like this before. It was the first time they'd ever held power tools or had done anything like this. So these were all new skills that they were learning. And we were lucky to have some great adult mentors who were willing to show them the ropes, to teach them how to do things. But I want to be clear, the kids did the work. The mentors taught them how, but the students had to do the work. So they had to design the robot. So we had to teach them computer-aided design. They learned how to modify some of those designs. They had to manufacture parts using 3D printers, and they had to assemble the robot. And while the mechanical sub-team was manufacturing parts and assembling robots, then our programming team was writing the program based on what it was that they thought they wanted to do. The electrical sub-team was laying out the schematic that they would be using as they began wiring in the motors and the sensors that would make the robot operate. They also had to wire together the remote control that they would be using. Now, for part of each match, and by the way, a match lasts about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The first portion of the match, the first phase of the match, the robots are operating autonomously. So there's no human intervention. There's no driver or operator control. The robots are operating on their programming. So teaching kids how to code, how to write in a language that the onboard computer would be able to understand. That was a new skill for many of these students, something that they hadn't done before. But they've not only learned how to do it, they mastered it, and that's kind of cool. And then you had to put all of those things together and then test it, refine your design. It is truly the engineering design process. Come up with an idea, do your research, put it together, test it. If it doesn't do what you expected it to do, then you start back over again, and you keep doing that until you improve that design. We just ran out of time. So you do as much as you can in the time that you have available. And then when you get to competition, you scout the competition. You look at all the other teams that are there, and you try to size them up. Who complements what your robot can do? At the end of the qualification rounds, the top 8 seeded teams get to pick 2 partners from the rest of the field. So part of the reason for them to walk around and interview those teams, to have scouts in the stands who are observing the teams, keeping track of are they good on defense? Are they able to score? How high could they climb? How many pieces of cargo could they deliver to the cargo hub? It's so that at the end of the qualification rounds, if they were fortunate enough to be one of the top 8 seeded teams, they can then pick some from the rest of the field who they'd like to partner with, those teams whose robots complement what their robots do. And of course, if they aren't in the top 8 seeded teams, they're scouting just the same, because if they get selected, they want to point out to that alliance captain, okay, check out our list. This team works really well with what it is that we do. They can do this. This is something that we can't do. You ought to pick them to be a part of this winning alliance. And that's really neat and exciting stuff.
More like like in the military, it's cooperate and graduate.
Yeah, that's it. That's it exactly. And the kids love it. This is what they look forward to. They know each other by their team numbers and what those teams have been able to do. And they've got a pretty decent pedigree. There's teams that have been participating in FIRST since its very first year. They're the veteran teams. And of course, those teams that win the highest award at competition and at the World Championship are inducted into the First Hall of Fame. And here in the greater Cleveland area, one of the teams, one of the veteran teams that's been around since the beginning of First is a Hall of Fame team. And that was sort of our big brother or big sister. They would stop in and check on our teams. And some of those students helped to mentor our students to help get them up to speed. And now my students are turning around and doing that with the next generation. As part of their outreach, they're helping to start new First Lego League teams. That is the elementary and middle school version of the First Robotics competition. So they're working with younger students, teaching them the basics about robotics, being mentors to them, so that as they grow older, they'll develop the skills that they need then to participate in the high school or the varsity level program.
Okay. Wow. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
First was the vision of a guy named Dean Cayman. You might be familiar with Dean. He's a great American inventor. He holds, I believe, 1,000 patents. Dean, I think his first patent came for the implantable drug pump. And since then, he's done all kinds of things, developed all kinds of amazing technology that's used all over the place. You might be familiar with the Segway. He's the inventor of the Segway. And the Segway is an offshoot of a stair climbing wheelchair that he designed. Again, Dean's got over 1,000 patents, and he runs DARPA for the United States government. Just an amazing guy. So for those military veterans that are out there, particularly those who have returned from combat overseas, who may have lost a limb, particularly an arm, the new articulated prosthetic arm device, upper limb device that the military is giving to their veterans, top of the line, state of the art, was designed by this Dean Cayman guy. And like I said, we believe that First is more than robots. And when Dean Cayman founded First back in 1992, I think it was, he wanted to build a culture where scientists and engineers were as celebrated as professional athletes are. Nothing against professional athletes. He just wondered why we weren't celebrating scientists the same way that we were rooting for Tom Brady or for other sports figures that were out there. He believed, and I believe as well, that we get what we celebrate. And if what we celebrate are great pro athletes, well, we've got great pro teams. But if we aren't celebrating the scientists and engineers that make our society work, that can find a cure to cancer, then it's other people that reap that benefit. And he wanted to change that. He wanted to inspire generations of young people to be science and technology leaders and innovators. So this season, our mentors challenged our students to think big. I mean, to put service to others before themselves, to use the skills that they were learning, as I said before, to make a lasting impact on the world. We work very closely with a U.S.-based medical aid organization called IMA Health. Again, it's a health-based organization here in the United States that sends healthcare professionals on volunteer medical missions all around the world. We're joining with them and with others from the maker community to create free, low-cost prosthetic devices for children.
Oh, that's incredible.
There are actually two types of prosthetic devices that our students work on. The E-enabled Phoenix hand, and this is an example of that. And again, this is sized for a small child. And then we also make the unlimited, if you'll excuse the pun, unlimited arm. And this is for somebody who has an amputation that is above the wrist but beneath the elbow. So this prosthetic device that you see on your screen is actually articulated by moving your elbow. The hand will open and close. And for a young person who's fitted with a hand like this, they can catch a ball, they can ride a bicycle, they can drink from a glass, comb their hair. Believe it or not, they can even they can play with their friends. and do the things that kids would ordinarily do. And to me, that's just amazing. It's not just amazing. That's just flat out cool stuff that we can do and that we're proud to be a part of. Um, our students found out that there were children in third world countries who are missing fingers and hands because of birth defects or because of war or disease or disasters that may have occurred in those countries. And they also learned that a prosthetic device costs tens of thousands of dollars. It's just not practical for small kids in very poor nations to get those because, well, we already know that for a small child, they grow like weeds. And in 6 months, they will have outgrown any prosthetic device that was made for them. But for a fraction of the cost, for roughly about $50 to $60, our high school students can use 3D printers in their lab to 3D print these hands. So our design sub teams that design the robot parts have a basic design that they start from. They get photographs and measurements from the recipient, and then they enter that information, that data into the CAD program, and then they can custom make and size a prosthetic device to fit that child, specifically to meet the geometry of that child's limb that's missing. And once they've done that, then the team that would ordinarily assemble a robot, they assemble the hand. The electronics team, who are used to working in small, tight spaces to wire together all of those motors and sensors together, well, they will thread the tendons, the string tendons that will articulate those fingers. They'll attach the rubber bands that we use at the knuckles. And these are decent hands that can really hang on to a bottle of soda or to a toothbrush, to a comb that will let them ride those bicycles that I mentioned before. And that's really neat. So here's a couple of young men. In this case, both of these young men have amputations that are in the hand. They're missing fingers, but they have enough of a palm and wrist control that that's all they need to operate this particular hand. If they were missing more of their arms below the elbow, but above the wrist, then we would use the different type of hand to aid them. We got involved in this through a project from a Rotary Club that I'm involved in. We support that medical mission, and they were sending a team to Ecuador. And there in Ecuador, they came across a young girl, a 12-year-old girl, who had been in a bad accident. She had lost one arm, and her remaining arm was so badly damaged that she had no control of the wrist. So we designed an arm specifically for this young lady that will allow her to do what she dreams of doing most, and that is just to be able to print her name. And being able to help her do that is it's earth-changing, particularly for my students. Remember, my students are poor kids from a bad neighborhood who their entire lives have been kicked around and told that they weren't worth it, that they weren't worthy. And here somebody was asking them for help, and they were able to provide it. It made them feel 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And it changed the way that they saw themselves in the world, and more importantly, what they are capable of doing to help everyone else. So they've embraced this project, and they've moved forward in helping others. Last thing I'll share with you on this presentation, then we'll open it up for more question and answer, is the credo. This is a credo, our statement of belief for all four of the teams that come together and work at the Great Lakes Science Center on Saturdays, making these arms, building robots, everything from aerial drones to underwater robots to the big industrial-sized robots that they compete in. They want you to know that they are first. They are an inclusive organization that embraces all students regardless of their race, their gender, disability, or socioeconomic status. They truly believe that they are better together. They believe that they are engineered for success, and they put service to others before themselves. They value STEM. Again, that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And they have pledged to use what they've learned to change lives and to make their communities, and by extension, the world a better place. I am so proud of these kids, and I'm so proud to belong to an organization like First. It's why I've volunteered for the last 20 years, and God willing, why I will continue to volunteer to the end of my days.
Wow, that is incredible. Totally incredible that they were able to, from the underserved communities, that they're able to come out and do these brilliant, great things, and not just to learn, but to be able to take that knowledge and help other people who are even less fortunate in other countries. I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal.
I'm inspired by them, and they came up with this. One of the students on one of our teams actually is from Ecuador, and when she saw the picture of this 12-year-old girl, she said that girl could be my sister. And she convinced all of the students on the other teams that this was a project that they just had to do. She said, we can make a difference doing this, and convince the other students to do it. You can go ahead and take down that screen share, and we can answer whatever additional questions there are out there.
All right. One of the, all right, where am I getting this background? One of my questions was, do they have to come up with all the funding themselves, or they're like a bank of money that gives them the initial egg and then they work from there? Or do they have to do all their marketing themselves, all their fundraising themselves? Or
great question. And fundraising is an important part of what it is that we do. One of the things that we want students to embrace and be a part of is entrepreneurial spirit. With that in mind, there are a number of companies, at least here in the United States, that make money available. So there are grants that are available. So we're teaching these high school students how to be grant writers, how to apply for grants. So they look. We have a team of students, part of our logistical sub team, that sit down and they look at the list of sponsors that are out there. They look at the criteria for those particular grants. They look to see which of those grants they can apply for, and then they come back to the rest of the team with their recommendations. So this year we're looking to apply to Raytheon, to Boeing, and to NASA for some of the funds that they make available to first teams. Now, once we've identified who we're going to be writing a grant to, then we still have to write that grant. So we have to look, we have to pull together the resources, we have to pull together the data that back up what it is that we say that we're going to do. And of course, if we get one of those grants, then we have to document what it is that we're doing, our success, how we spend those dollars, and report back at the end of the season what we did with the money that we received, how it was used, what the impact was, and who was served by what we did. Now, that's one part of the fundraising effort, and that is the grant writing. There's another part where we are going from business to business, meeting with those businesses and asking them for funding, asking them to support those teams. And we've taught the kids to take it really seriously. We don't want you to go down to the pizza shop and ask them to give you money. We want them to invest in you. And with that in mind, the students have to think about what they're able to give back. And again, they have to put together the documentation to say, this is what we're doing with the community. This is what more we can do in this community with your support. And for that support, this is what you're going to get. So bear with me here. I think I have it close. A list of perks for team sponsors, and how those benefit for that team would be used. So for our teams at the presenting sponsor level, that's for a donation of $6,000 or more. That team will be invited to a VIP luncheon reception in the owner's box at one of the major tournaments that we go to. They get a swag bag filled with all kinds of neat team merchandise. Did I mention merchandise? You can buy your own team shirt from one of our teams. And of course, some other tidbits and trinkets that the teams make, everything from buttons to pencil holders or pen holders to clocks, things that they've used their skills to create that they could use to sell in order to raise additional funds for the team. They get a large size sponsored name and logo on the competition robot. So just like NASA, our robots are covered with stickers from our sponsors, so you can tell who sponsors them. And we also include the sponsor's logo and name on the team jersey. So team members wear jerseys with their team number on them and with the major sponsors. It'll be on that jersey as well. And then, of course, on our website, we will link that sponsor's logo back to their homepage. And we encourage people who visit our website to support those local sponsors who sponsor our teams. And then, of course, we have a strategic partner level for somebody who supports our teams, $4,000 to $6,000. Key supporter level is $1,000 to $4,000. And then a friends level is between $100 and $1,000 for support. And there's different packages for each one of them. Wow. Teaching our kids how to put together those packages and then how to go out and talk about them, how to market themselves. So they've got to create that website because you're going to want to do your research before you're willing to give us some money. They also have to go out and build those relationships. So they go out and potential donors, they invite to the competitions. We want to have them come and see us. And we don't want them to just come and sit in the stands. We want them to come down to the pit to feel that excitement, to see our kids and to see the other kids working on the other robots, because we're new at this. But we want those potential funders to see what veteran teams are capable of with the right level of support, and then to come back to us and say, we want to be able to do these great things that you saw these other teams doing, but we can't do it without your support. So teaching them how to have those kinds of conversations, how to talk about that investment, and to talk about the return on that investment, not just the swag bag and the neat stuff and getting your logo places, but the nuts and bolts, the heart, what these kids are going to do in the local community to support STEM education efforts here locally, to help promote and support the local economy, what these kids are going to be doing based on this investment. We aren't asking you to give us money. We want you to invest in the future of this community. And teaching them how to talk like that makes a big difference. And then, of course, the last part of fundraising is to come up with products that they can sell to the public, that they can sell online. Buy a T-shirt, buy a desk clock, buy the business card stand that our teams are able to create in their workshop. And by purchasing some of those items, they allow us to do some of the other things. So that might be buying pizza for our Saturday joint build session. So the kids come in, they work all day. They don't have to carry a bag lunch. They get a nice, hot, fresh pizza or some other type of lunch that is delivered to the work site. So they get to spend more time working together and working on the robots and working on the various projects that they're involved in.
Fantastic. And I take it you, before we move on from fundraising, I take it you kind of discourage the easy fundraising things like GoFundMe or Indiegogo or Starter. You want to into the business.
I don't turn anything away.
Okay.
We won't miss out on that. We haven't done it yet, but thank you for putting that bug in my ear. We'll see if we can get it. We'll see if we can get our teams to put that together at the very least to help us buy the materials that we need to 3D print those prosthetic devices. again, our students are raising those dollars themselves. And they wanted to do it that way because they did not want to charge the recipient a dime. So they make these low cost prosthetic devices, but they give them to the people in need. That was an important part. That was something they wanted to make sure that they did. But those parts cost money. Those materials cost money. Now, mind you, I shared with you we can make a prosthetic arm, a whole arm for roughly $50 to $60 to $75, depending on what's needed. And while that doesn't sound like a lot to us, for kids in a poor neighborhood that are raising those dollars themselves, that's a fortune. To them, it is, but that's important. So believe it or not, that project is one of the things that they talk about that they do when they're making that pitch to those businesses and organizations. So whether it's a manufacturing facility like Swagelok that's here in the greater Cleveland area, or going to Parker Aerospace and talking to their folks, or if it's just talking to the Dollar General, or meeting up with somebody at the local Pizza Hut, they take it very seriously, and they talk a good game. They dress the part. We teach them how to talk, how to dress, how to do that elevator pitch. All of those things are important, and that's just on the non-technical side of the house. Our teams are small, so it's not uncommon to have team members that serve in multiple capacities. They might be on the mechanical team, or they might be a programmer, but they're also doing some of that logistics work. So our programmers are also putting together our website and handling all of our social media. The electrical team might also be involved with going out and making public presentations at Rotary Club meetings, or talking to other service organizations within the town. We have others that are actively involved in fundraising who might be on the mechanical team as well. We want our kids to have as many experiences as they can. They don't have to master everything, but we want to give them that experience so that they're better, well-rounded, and they can function better within a group.
Great. Glad I can help you with an idea for fundraising.
We're on it.
Okay. Now I'm going to, I've already got a list of questions from the chat. I've got one from Legatus Legionai, and he says, did any of your grads ever go on to the BattleBots TV show, or is that show beneath their skills? Or Robot Wars? The ones
Well, when people find out that I'm involved in robotics and that I coach high school robotics teams, the first thing they ask is it BattleBots? Are they tearing up each other's robot? And while that's really cool and fun to watch, that kind of defeats the purpose of our organization first. Again, we kind of shy away from that us versus them. We've got to destroy somebody else's hard work. Remember, these kids have worked their heart out. They raised dollars, typically $15,000 to $16,000, just to be able to compete. It'd be an awful shame for them to work so hard to get out on the field and have somebody completely destroy their robot. So our competition is designed not to destroy each other, but to build and lift each other up. In fact, there are penalties for intentionally damaging another robot. Now, these are big robots. They move at a high rate of speed. When you're moving 6-7 feet per second and you're carrying, 125-pound mass, when they bump into one another, it's not gentle. So the robots have to be built to be robust. But the idea is not for them to destroy one another, but to compete against and with one another in a gracious, professional manner.
Okay, and again, Legatus has another question. It's this is sort of like MacGyver, using any and all parts to build a contraption to overcome an obstacle which is put before them.
It's very similar to that. I think you have the right idea. The parts have to be approved, so there is a list of approved parts, and there is a price range that they must stay within. And as part of the inspection process, teams have to furnish their engineering notebook along with their bill of lading, so that the judges and the inspectors can verify that they haven't overspent, they haven't gone out and bought some things that are using items that aren't approved for this competition. Safety has to come first, and that's our big goal.
Okay. And you answered this one. It was, along with the fundraising, does the program offer grants? And you pretty much answered this one.
Yeah, absolutely. The list of grantors with the organization is a who's who of the Fortune 500. Some of the top organizations in the world are contributing to this program, donating millions of dollars every year that teams can access through the grant process in order to participate and compete, including the United States military. So, Department of Defense is a big supporter of First Robotics. And many other robotic programs as well.
Okay. Have the teams ever suggested quests that can be used in future competitions? So, like, a team decides there's going to be a quest that they may want to see in the future.
Yes, teams have and continue to make suggestions about possible games for the future. The Game Design Committee, and there are two Game Design Committees, and they switch off every year. It takes about a year to 2 years to fully come up with a game from start to finish, from initial thoughts through putting it all together to prototyping and testing before that game is approved. So the game is announced on the first Saturday of the new year. So our next game will come out, I believe it's January 7th, will be when the game will be released. And it usually is released in the form of a game animation that explains what the game is, how points are accrued, how you score, and what the game field elements are that you're going to be playing on and playing with. Um, so while this season is in effect, the alternate game design committee is already hard at work working on next season's game. So we are gearing up for the 2023 season, but the game design committee is already well along working on the 2024 season, coming up with a game for that.
Okay.
So at the end of our regular season for the upcoming year, they will tease out what the next season's game will be. So we know that this coming season's game is going to have something to do with energy, and we already know who the major sponsors are for that game for next season.
Okay. Wow. Already thinking very forward thinking.
Yeah.
John Rendell asks, are still used in robotics, such as metals that expand or contract depending on temperature? I remember reading about that in the 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you that as a NASA contractor, we did that a lot. Now, that's not something that we're working with these high school students, but it certainly is in robotics, depending on where you're going and what it is that you want to do. NASA needs that just for the types of spacecraft design that we design. And again, most of our space probes, all of our space probes are robotic vehicles that allow us to extend our reach and go to other places. It utilizes sensors to collect information, and then the robot responds accordingly. And those vehicles have to operate in very harsh environments, in a vacuum, where in direct sunlight, at least in low Earth orbit, you're looking at temperatures that on the side that's facing the sun, it's going to be about 270 to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. But at the same time, part of that spacecraft that's in the shadow, that's not in direct sunlight, it can be 270 to 300 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. And with those extremes, the metal is constantly expanding and contracting. So designing and developing materials and equipment that can operate in those extremes is very important. And useful materials like this make that possible.
Okay. Basil, the Pump and Seagull, asks, are those orthotic arms, I hope I said that right, I saw controlled with skin galvanization sensors? If so, are they strategically placed at the point of junction of the missing limb?
So I understand the question. We aren't making myoelectric hands that are picking up on the electrical signal that's coming from muscles in the remaining limb of an individual. These are all mechanically operated limbs, and we did that for cost. We did that for cost. Again, a typical myoelectric hand can run uh, 30 to 40 up to $50,000 to produce one of those. And obviously, we aren't going to raise that kind of money. And that's not practical in those third world countries. So we build mechanically operated limbs that by moving a wrist or by moving an elbow, and we hope to learn how to make full arm replacement that can be operated by cable. So by flexing the muscles in your back, you can get the fingers to open and to close around various objects. We haven't mastered that yet, but we're working with a prosthetist who makes prosthetic limbs, and he's teaching us how we might do that. And then it'll be up to our students to think of how they can do that in a low-cost manner that would be suitable for children. Again, children who are going to outgrow the limb that we produce for them in 6 months or so. So we have to be able to make something low cost that can be easily produced. And ideally, what our students really would like to do is to build a suite of instructional videos so that we will make the initial arm, but we will teach people in that country, if they have a 3D printer, how they can make. So as that person grows, they can modify the arm to fit their needs. So not only are they helping that young person in need, but um, they're creating an industry and an economy in that third world country that would be sustainable, that would allow somebody there on the ground to be able to do that work.
Okay. So it's got to be easily replicatable and cost effective to be able to use to go into those third world countries and provide the process
Right.
for them.
And what your poster asks is, we've seen those. Those are really are fantastic devices, but in an impoverished country, in the developing world, it's just not practical. And again, our students are designing and building something that can be useful to children and families that are in those developing nations that have little or no funds.
Okay. All right.
That was a good one. That was good. Good. They all have been great questions.
Yeah, they've been fantastic. My chat is just absolutely great on asking questions. Snorter Pupus Cuber asks, is there an upper limit on what the contestants can spend on their entries in the competition? Hopefully this wasn't addressed already. No, it wasn't.
There is, but I can't remember what that exact amount is. But there is, and that's spelled out in the game manual at the beginning of each year. So, and we encourage the students to pay close attention to the game manual and the updates that come out on a weekly basis. So, once we actually start the season, so there's a 6-week build season, followed by roughly 7 weeks of competitions around the world. So on any given week, there may be as many as 20 district and regional events taking place somewhere around the world. And depending on what happens during those events, we might come across something that is significant enough that it requires a rule change. So First Headquarters will make that change, and then we'll release that update to all the teams around the world. So they will make a note. They can replace the pages in the game manual with the updated pages, and then we move forward from there. So it's neat. As a game announcer, I have to keep track of all of those rule changes and be able to articulate them as I'm calling play-by-play during any given match.
Okay.
And our
Now-
matches are complete with referees and cheering fans and marching bands. It is so cool to go to an event where you can fill a professional basketball arena with thousands of screaming kids, and where you see the football team and the basketball team from ABC High School show up to cheer on the robotics kids, where the mascots are dancing, the music is pumping, and the excitement is just incredible. It's amazing.
One last question. This is mine on student registration fees. Do the team members have to pay anything, or is that totally covered in grants?
The individual team members don't have to pay a registration fee, although they do have to register for the program.
Mhm.
But to register a team at the beginning of the season, just registration in order to get the basic kit of parts and to register for their first event this season, it is $6. I'm sorry, 60. It is $6,000.
Mm.
And to participate in more than one event, it's $6,000 for the first event, $3,000 for each additional event beyond that.
Okay.
Of course, if they want to purchase additional materials and supplies, that is completely up to them, and they'll have to raise money for that. If the event that they're going to compete at is out of town, then they have to raise funds for transportation and for lodging and for meals. So all of those things are important. And of course, you want to get T-shirts or team jerseys for your students that have your sponsors' logos on them. So another reason to go out and look for that sponsorship.
Right. John Rendo asks, have you reached out to various trade schools for support or encouragement?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have, and we do that on a regular basis. Not everything is money. Sometimes it's gift in kind. Sometimes it's just time. So as we reach out to businesses, if they don't have any money that they can offer, what else can you offer? Do you have members of your team that would be willing to mentor these students, whether it's for the entire season or simply to come in and teach a workshop on this particular thing that your group or organization does well? So, for example, we have an automotive trade school that's here in town. It's Ohio Technical College here in Cleveland. And their students at that school, they are learning how to build and work on automotive engines, everything from cars to sports vehicles like four-wheelers and motorcycles, all the way up through semi-trucks. They know mechanical. So having some of those students come in and teach a workshop for our mechanical sub-teams on how to assemble the parts that make the robot drive forward and backward, that make it run, that's useful for us. That's worth going out for. Even if the school can't provide us with money, being able to provide us with a few students or even an instructor or two who's willing to teach a workshop on that class, that's worth asking for. And they're willing to do that. And when they come and they do those kind of things and have that feel-good experience, they see the kids learning, they see them trying it, they see it work, they see the robot maneuvering around the field. That's the kind of thing that gets them excited and inspired. And it makes it easier for us the next season to go back and ask them for some funds to help us make these things happen. And they're much more willing to donate those funds after they've had that kind of relationship, that feel good experience with the student. So we try to do that as much.
Okay. Legatus clarified his first question. It's, to your knowledge, did anyone who competed in First Robotics ever go on to those?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Quite a few. I wish I could remember all the names. I can see their faces, but yes, we've had participants from First go on into BattleBots and Robot Wars. We've also had first participants go on to work at NASA. We have quite a few that work for SpaceX, that work for General Dynamics, that are involved with developing robots for the military. So if you've seen photos of the Mule, that's a four-legged robot, that pack animal, a robot that will carry military hardware into the battlefield. And we've had alumni from First who were involved with helping to develop hardware like that, who work on some of the drones, the next generation drones that are being used to do all kinds of things for the military, and of course in the spy world too.
Have any of your alumni actually gone into the military?
I'm sorry, it sounded like you asked if any of our alumni have gone into the military or are currently in the military. Is that? Yes, there are a few.
Okay.
There are a few.
All right. Legatus Legion I asks, do you document the progress of the teams, such as YouTube videos and the final competition?
Yes. As a matter of fact, we do. You can see those competitions. We air our competitions. We live stream all of the events or most of the events around the world via Twitch TV. So we have Twitch First Inspires channels, and we usually have 8 or 9 of those channels running on any given week during competition season, with each channel devoted to a different regional or a different district event taking place around the world. So we train announcers or we use announcers there on site who are native language speakers so that they can speak in the language of those viewers for that particular event. And that's kind of neat stuff. So you can find that. You can go online and you can look up the First Robotics competition. You can see different events. You can see how things go. And of course, because that's a live feed, often as I'm announcing an event, we'll remind our audience, our viewing audience that's there on site, if they hadn't already done so, to take a moment to tweet, send a text, or otherwise post a message to their friends back home with the URL so that they can tune in and follow that progress. I've done events all over the United States. And we get postings just like you do, and we find out that we've got people that are overseas, military members who are former first participants who've tuned in to see how their old team is doing at a particular competition, and able to send messages back and forth, and sometimes on those video feeds to be able to pop up on the screen. Here's a group of service members stationed in XYZ who are watching this event, and you see them waving to the teams that are competing at that event, and that's always exciting.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I know my renters are probably gonna. I know my renters probably by the time the show is over, will have that link already posted. Hint, hint. For the YouTube channel, if out there. Let me go through some other questions here.
How about making robot arms modular?
Oh, okay. Lenrod asks, how about making the robot arms modular?
It's a good point, and to some extent they are modular in design. So depending on the needs and the geometry of that individual's hand, sometimes it's 1 or 2 fingers that are missing. Sometimes it's a whole hand that's missing. It really depends on that individual. But we have a hand type, we have a forearm type, and we have an upper arm type that we can modify depending on the needs of that individual. So we take lots of photographs, we use those measurements, and then we go back to the basic designs that we have, those individual modules, and we can adjust those components that need to be adjusted as needed. So we have a package that's just the front part of the fingers. Then from the first knuckle up, we have a section that's just the palm of the hand. Then we have, if it's for an amputee that is below the wrist, then we have a wrist design or a module that we can plug in. If the amputation is above the wrist, then we use that forearm design and then the upper arm design. It just depends on the geometry of that individual's limb.
Have you gone to legs yet?
I beg your pardon?
Have you gone to legs yet?
No. The legs require material that's that has to be stronger than what we can produce with the 3D printing, because it's going to have to support body weight, and we don't know how much that individual is going to weigh. There are other organizations that do that clearly better than we can, and we leave those things to them. One of the things that students have to learn is you have to know what your limitations are, and you have to know what your resources are. And you have to work within those resources, including your knowledge base. So if there's somebody who can do it better, why try to reinvent the wheel? Let the folks that can do something better, let them do that, and you focus on what you do well.
Okay. The goddess has a the Jocks cheer for nerds.
Yeah, go Nerds. That's me. Varsity Inn, right in the middle of my my sweater. Now, was there a question there, or was
No,
that
it
just
was a comment.
I love the comment.
Actually, Sandra just brought up something that your YouTube channel has over 1,000 subscribers. Have you thought about monetizing?
Not for me to say, but you got me thinking. Not my channel, though. That belongs to somebody else. So yeah. And again, these are team members from all of these teams across the U.S., Canada, Mexico, Brazil, all over South America, all over Europe, for that matter, the Middle East, and we've got new teams that are popping up in China and also in Israel. I know that my students last year made a presentation to school administrators from Israel who had come to Cleveland, and they were so intrigued. And we know that this coming season that there are new teams that will be starting in Israel because of what we shared. So we'll be interacting virtually with some of those new teams, helping them to get up and going. And at one of our schools, they have one of the languages they teach at that school is Mandarin. So we hope to be able to work with some of the students that are there in China and Japan, and be able to coordinate and work on projects with them. So it's truly an international organization.
Okay. I'm going to put the website up there for the main first fire. Excuse me a minute.
So you can access information about FIRST and its entire suite of programs from pre-K all the way up through the high school program by going to firstinspires.org. Again, that's firstinspires.org.
Okay, it's right there.
And then from there, you can look at you can take a look at the individual programs that are offered, from First Lego League to First Tech Challenge, up to the First Robotics competition, or the FRC. And again, that's the program that we've been talking about so far tonight.
Okay. All right. Getting an echo. I can't figure out why. John Rando asked, would you say that working within your limitation toward the goal of expanding your ability is one way of looking at it?
Yeah, I absolutely would, John, and that's a great point that you bring out. We don't want the students to be limited. We want them to be conscious of what it is that they can do, but we also want them thinking about what they can do in the future. So I might not have all the resources to do something this year, but I know that that's something I want to do, and I will begin planning for it for the upcoming season. So this past season, our students needed to develop a passive system to deliver cargo to the hub. There were two hubs in the center of this year's field, a low hub and a high hub. You could think of them as large funnels, one that was about 4 feet off the ground and another one that was close to 8 feet off the ground. Our robot, because of the size restraints, can't reach up to 8 foot. But those teams that were able to develop some type of targeting system that could launch cargo pods into that upper hub, we're able to do so. And obviously, being the upper hub, smaller in diameter,
Stand by. I'm trying to get him back. Mr. Raymond pushed belly button to summon Mr. Guest. Yeah. Stand by on. Okay, guys, I am so sorry. I tried to get rid of that echo by removing the one shared screen, and it kicked him out totally. Any StreamYards people who can help me get him back in, I would appreciate it.
Does he have to go out and click the link and come back in?
I'm checking. Sometimes you just gotta. Basil, you may be right. Okay. I'm afraid. Let's see. Nope, belly button's not working, Pudgy. Yeah. Oh gosh. So, as he's trying to come back on, we will we'll continue as best we can. As we all know here at King Dolphin TV, it's always semper gumby, always flexible. So I apologize for the technical difficulties. I do got to say his discussions were, yeah, okay, Legatus, that's a good idea. Upcoming shows are upcoming shows. We have on the next week. He's back. Jondarr,
I was sharing my best stuff, and it took me a long time before I realized I wasn't there.
so it was, that's what happens when.
No worries, man. No worries.
Yeah, I ought to have your kids run the channel here. They'd probably do a much better job.
No. This is cool. I'm so impressed by what you have and your team of loyal viewers and your moderators that are out there in the field. The questions have been stellar, and I hope that I'm answering those questions.
Oh yeah. Let's see. I'm going back to seeing if there were any. Okay. Sandra says you can get channel members at a certain amount per month to give super thanks or super chats. Could bring in some money. So something to consider.
That's a good idea. I'm making notes.
Okay. Especially since you do have the channel does have.
Thank you for all those great ideas.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. This is. I was going to ask this one, but I tend to try and stay away from the politics. But this is a good question. Does global conflicts, travel bans affected teams' competitions in the past, where global politics affects such non-political student competitions? I was also going to ask, to dogtail, how has the pandemic affected the competitions?
Both of those are great questions. We'll take the initial question first.
Okay.
A few years ago, the United States had a Muslim ban, and one of the teams that had qualified to compete was a team, an all-female team from Afghanistan. They qualified to go to the World Championship. That year, the World Championship was held in Detroit, Michigan, and those students were not permitted to come here. There was a ban against them being able to participate. The students also had competed in Canada. Now, while competing in Canada, they won an event there in Canada and became the representatives from Canada to compete at that time. They came and they competed quite well. The Afghan Dreamers, I believe, was the name of the team, and again, that was an all-female team. The world was riveted to the team when they were finally able to come and compete representing Canada. In fact, Canada sent their prime minister for science to come and watch them participate, and that happened to be a former astronaut, somebody that I knew, part of the Canadian space program. And once she retired from the space program, she was made the prime minister responsible for science in that nation. And she made the trip there along with the Canadian version of the Secret Service so that she could watch the girls perform and then, of course, give them some prestigious medals on behalf of the Canadian government. Those young ladies went back to their home country, again, a country, Afghanistan, it was ravaged by war. Looking around in their community, they saw that local hospitals were in need of respirators. And so the girls looked around and they started taking parts from abandoned and damaged and blown up automobiles and building respirators using the skills that they had. They built respirators that could be used by those hospitals. Again, the world followed them when the United States withdrew from Afghanistan, very worried about an all-female team engaged in STEM, and we knew that organizations that were there, political organizations in there, wanted to make an example of these girls. And we were all on pins and needles, hoping that the girls would be able to escape from the country. And we're so pleased to learn that the last of the girls was able to get out of the country and continue their education. So we're excited for that. But we've seen those kind of challenges in the past. You know, we've got a lot of stuff that's going on in the world right now, and sometimes we see teams that are unable to participate because of that. And by the same token, we've seen cases where countries have been in great conflict, and yet they've seen those students come together and work together to solve problems out on the field, and it's changed the way that young people look at one another. I'm a person that believes that it's easy to hate somebody that you don't know, but if you get to work with them, if you're working on a project that you both have something in common with, once you get to know people, it's a lot harder to hate them. You find ways to work through your differences, and that's part of the goals of the program. Um, you know, for folks who have served, particularly those who have served in combat, you come home, and the one thing you want to do is hope that nobody that you know ever has to serve in conditions like that ever again. So programs like this is a way of avoiding those future problems, building those relationships across borders, teaching each other that we have way more in common than we actually have that separates us, and it's making differences all around the world.
So true.
Pandemic was hard for First. Um, we ended up having to cancel the program for two seasons, and that was the in-person program. We shifted and offered virtual programming for those 2 years that some of our teams participated in. This is the first year since 2019 that teams were able to meet and compete in person again. The conditions varied from country to country, and here in the United States, from state to state, depending on what the masking requirements were at those locations. So some events were fully masked, other events, mask was optional. Other events, Texas, no mask was required at all. It just depended on where you were and what your comfort level was.
Okay. John Rendell has a great one here. What about contracting or contacting Shriners International for an exchange of ideas? They do great work in prosthetics.
John Randall, are you a Shriner?
He is.
Beautiful. King Dolphin here will provide you with my contact information, and we will certainly talk offline.
Okay. I will be sure to pass that on to him.
You know, it's a big project, and it requires a lot of help and a lot of expertise, and we look for that help and expertise wherever we can find it. We encourage the students to do that, and I, as a mentor, do that as well. So we won't turn away help from anyone, and we're always looking for new sources of information and support, whether it be financial support or other types of support. We're always looking for it.
Okay. Anti-Derivative Jill has a comment along your thing about it's a lot harder to hate from up close. Dr. Claire Finn from the Orville, Season 3, Electric Sheep.
That's right. And that was a great episode, by the way. And I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
I knew we had something in common. Well, we always did. We
certainly did, and we still do, and we still do.
Yes.
But that's kind of neat. That's it's hard to say, is that art imitating life or life imitating art? But
So
that is so true, and we see that every year in the First Robotics competition.
Okay. And yeah, John says he's been a Shriner. He's a Mason, but I'll give you his info, John. Okay.
Thank you much.
We have actually gone to the end of our questions, and despite the blip, this has been a great show. It's always good
Well, thank you.
to hook back up to you and find out what you've been doing. And it sounds like this is doing amazing work, both for this community of Cleveland, the students in the community that can really use the assistance to be able to stand up for themselves and do great things, and then to be able to help the world at large by providing these prosthetics to those that need it. It's just absolutely amazing. I am awestruck. I am very awestruck, and no, okay, that's that one. Legata says, here's the website for First Inspires, where you can get all the information. I told you he'd have it. My moderators, my wrenchers are amazing. They
They're
usually
all over it. I love it.
Yes, they are. And it is just amazing work that you're doing, and you got to keep us up to date as to how the season's going. And
I certainly will. It is a huge community. I'm proud to be a part of it. I feel like I'm only a little piece. It's not about me. It's all about these kids and what they're able to do and what they're able to accomplish. And we put no limits on them. The sky is the limit. If they can dream it, if they can imagine it, then they can certainly do it. Our job is to simply give them the tools and give them the encouragement to go after it. And they really are. They're all in, and I'm all in with them.
Oh, and Keena Kirst just said hello to you.
Oh wow! Hey, Keena, it's so nice to hear from you. Keena and I went to school together, so this is very cool.
Oh, okay, great. Welcome to.
Thanks for tuning in and learning about one of my many hobbies. This is a passion for me, and I'm so happy to be able to share it, especially with somebody back home. You've got a first team in your area that's out of Shelby, Ohio, and that team has done very, very well. Competed at the World Championship several times, and I'm a big fan and have been a supporter of that team as well.
And then, okay. Sandra asks, would one of your teams be willing to come on to talk about their experience?
Yes, as a matter of fact, school is just getting started. So let us get a little bit into the season, either just before or right after we compete here in March. We'd be happy to come on and tell you about our regular season and talk about our plans for the off season as well. You know, this past weekend they just finished building underwater robots that we launched into Lake Erie, into Cleveland Harbor. The underwater robots were outfitted with manipulators and onboard underwater cameras that could be used to inspect the infrastructure beneath the waves and some of the marine craft that were there as well. So the kids were really excited. One of their tasks was to design a robot that could collect water samples from various depths in the harbor. By studying the microorganisms that are in the water, we could learn a lot about the health of this natural resource, this freshwater lake that the city of Cleveland is right there next to, and of course it's right outside the Great Lakes Science Center is literally in the harbor, and we can walk right out onto the harbor and launch these underwater robots, and that was real exciting for the kids.
Wow, that's amazing. Be great to see some footage of that.
I will get it your way, or better yet, we'll talk about it when the students come back on to share their experience about what they've been doing.
Awesome. Yes, we look forward to that. Let's see. One more question. Legatus again. Do you have a section where it states we have had X number of participants in X number of teams? competing at of this year to see how many people this has affected?
Each year before we begin the World Championship, we put together a fact sheet that is the season facts. And I'm so embarrassed because I usually have everything with me, but I don't have that fact sheet in front of me.
Well,
But
we got us.
Man, I am so embarrassed.
No. Get back over here.
I can't believe I don't have that for you.
Well, Legatus already took care of it for us.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, 679,000 plus. Wow. In the 2019-20 season. That is...
And that was the season. That was the first season that we had to go virtual.
Okay.
We had to end the season early. I think we ended the first or second week of competition. We had to cancel the rest of the weeks and cancel the program because of COVID.
Okay. Lenrod says, I would have killed to have a thing like this when I was in school. Stupid rural Wisconsin.
There's some great teams in Wisconsin. They are just incredible. And I've got some good friends that are up there. I do some events that are there in Wisconsin and also in Minnesota. I'm the same way. Where were programs like this when I was a kid? It was the thing I said when I went to my first event. I thought this was incredible. It was spectacular. I was so impressed by what went into this and the amount of money that companies and corporations were willing to make available for scholarships. I mentioned it before. There's $85 million in scholarships this year. Most of those for just being on a team. That's not winning anything. That's just being on a team, because the skills that you're learning by being on a team, and I'm talking about teamwork, communication, problem solving, how to prioritize tasks, all of those types of things are the things that companies and businesses are looking for, and they happily support. And they put that money out there to go to their favorite college or university, and that money is there. You'd be surprised at how much of it doesn't get utilized because people don't realize that it's there. So one of our tasks, particularly with juniors and seniors, is reminding them each year, hey, there's money that's out there. You've got to make sure that you apply for it. Don't wait till the last minute. Opportunity is knocking. It's knocking on the front door. And if you don't answer, it's not going to the back door and going to knock again. Take advantage of these opportunities that first is made available for you.
Yes.
This off season, we took our there's 60, I think, all told, between all four of the teams and all of their various sub teams, there was about 60 students all combined, and we've been taking those students during the summer months on college tours. We've gone to college campuses throughout the region, both inside and outside of the state, because we wanted to get those kids. And these are kids who have never been outside their neighborhood. But we want to take them to these colleges and universities so they can get a taste of what college life is like. We want them to meet those engineering professors, to tour those laboratories. And we want them to know that this is a place where you can be. Just a little hard work, a little application, but you could be here. And there are resources that will make it easy for you to come. You just have to take advantage of it.
Great. Well, this was awesome. I really am glad you came on, and it's, as I said earlier, we've been cut off for so long. It's good to get back in touch with you.
Too long. I have to make a trip. I have to come and see you guys.
Oh, we'll hook that up. We'll let you know.
All right.
So let us start wrapping this up again. I am honored to have Mr. Jondarr Bradshaw on, and let us stick around afterwards so we can chat. But let us do some show notes, and then welcome everybody that came out here, and thank you for all the amazing questions you had. I am so proud of this chat. You guys are the best. On the 17th of August, next week, we're going to have Kai MFS talking about his writing. On August 24th, Anti-Derivative Jill and I will be talking about Deep Space Nine. We'll be talking the bromances and frenemies. And then on August 31st, we will have Outer Rim Praxium. They are a Star Wars lightsaber combat school. So that's what's coming up till the end of the month. And of course, we have on Saturdays, Just Cuz, where anything can happen and usually does. And so be sure you're here on Saturday to watch that, to take part in the show and just have fun. I'd like to welcome everybody who was here. We had our wrench team supreme, Legatus Legion I, first in, last out, always the best in asking questions. We had Snorter Poopus Q Burr. Thank you, buddy, for coming. Mini Snort was holding the fort. John Randall, thank you very much, and I'll make sure I get you that information. Tim the Enchanter, thank you for coming. Anti-Derivative Jill, thank you also for coming. And Lenrod, thank you for being the wrench. Also, our producer and the head wrench is Sandra, my better half, the one who keeps me out of trouble, the one who feeds Snoopy, and just keeps things sane around here. And now our chatters. We had Mr. CCDV, we had Lord Thoth, we had Matt G, we had Basil, the Pumpkin Seagull, we had Ms. Martin's Muses, and we had Pudgy Hedgehog, who did the rough check on Mr. Bradshaw's house. We had James Caserta, and we had Keena Kirst. Welcome, Keena, to your first King Dolphin TV. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, thank you very much, Jondarr, and it was a pleasure. And we will be sure to see you and your team come back, and we can talk about their experience throughout the competition. That will be really fascinating. All right, everybody. You guys have a safe weekend and a fun weekend. Safe week, fun week, and then we will see you Saturday for Just Cuz. Thank you, everybody, and take care. And for all of you have seen the intro done by Fet for Hire. This is a brand new outro from our own Fet for Hire. Good night, all.